Have you ever noticed how the people with the most power often seem the most disconnected from reality? They sit in high places, make decisions that affect millions, yet seem blind to the consequences of their own actions. It's easy to assume they must know something we don't, some hidden wisdom that comes with authority, but the truth is often the opposite. The higher someone rises, the more likely they are to fall into the trap of self-delusion. And the more control they hold, the more reality begins to bend, not because it's actually changing, but because everyone around them is too afraid to tell the truth. That's the hidden cost of power no one talks about. You gain obedience, respect, even admiration, but you lose something far more dangerous: clarity. When people begin to fear your reaction more than they value honesty, they stop challenging your ideas. They nod, they agree, they validate, and slowly you stop seeing things as they are. You only see what you want to see. This isn't just a flaw in leadership, it's a psychological trap. One that's claimed kings, presidents, CEOs, and everyday people who simply found themselves in charge. You don't have to be ruling a nation to fall into this mindset. Maybe you're a manager, a parent, a coach, or someone others look up to. The moment you're in a position where your words carry weight, your mind becomes vulnerable. You stop hearing truth. You start hearing echoes. And in those echoes, your ego grows stronger while your perception grows weaker. It's not because you're weak, it's because you're human. The illusion of being right becomes addicting. The silence of others becomes validation. And before you know it, you've built your entire identity on a fragile foundation of control. But here's where it gets powerful. Once you understand this trap, you can escape it. You can become the rare type of leader, person, who sees clearly even when others bow. You can build strength that isn't rooted in power, but in truth. You can rise without becoming blind. That clarity is your weapon. It makes you unshakable. Because while others are consumed by their own reflection, you'll be watching reality. And reality always wins. This video isn't just about leaders or politicians. It's about you, your life, your mind, your power. Whether you realize it or not, you're already leading something yourself, your path, your future. And the same trap that swallows the powerful is waiting in your own decisions, your own comfort zones, your own need to feel certain. Stay with this message, because what's coming next will reveal how power truly rewires the brain, how people become prisoners of their own status, and how you can break that cycle before it ever begins. If you've ever wanted to rise without losing yourself, to gain influence without falling into illusion, then what you're about to hear could change everything. The truth isn't easy, but it's always the beginning of real power. Power doesn't just change your position in the world, it changes your perception of it. The moment you begin to rise, something subtle starts happening inside your mind. You feel more confident, more capable, more certain. And while that certainty feels like growth, it can quietly become a poison. The human brain responds to power the same way it responds to reward. It releases chemicals that reinforce your sense of importance, inflating your self-image without you even realizing it. You start to believe your instincts are always right. You stop questioning your decisions. You trust your opinions more than the facts in front of you. And that's when the decline begins. Not outside you, but within. When no one dares to challenge you, when every word you speak is met with agreement, you lose the one thing that keeps people grounded: resistance. Without resistance, there is no growth. Without conflict, there is no clarity. And without truth, there is no power, only the illusion of it. Many people chase influence believing it will give them control, but what they fail to see is that control without self-awareness is a trap. Now, the ego whispers, "Well, you're winning," even while your judgment is eroding. It tells you you don't need advice, while your blind spots multiply. The higher you climb without reflection, the more dangerous every step becomes. If you've ever seen someone change the moment they got a little authority, you've seen this in action. It's not the power itself that corrupts. It's what it does to our sense of identity. We begin to confuse our role with our worth. We think leadership means we can't be questioned, that admitting mistakes is weakness. That confidence means never doubting ourselves. But real strength is the opposite. Real strength is knowing that the higher you go, the more urgently you need to listen. The more influence you gain, the more disciplined your thoughts must become. The more control you hold, the more humility you must carry. This isn't just about keeping power, it's about surviving it. Because most people don't fall from failure. they fall from success. They become so enamored with their own voice that they stop hearing reality knocking. And when reality finally breaks in, it doesn't ask permission. It shatters illusions, exposes blind spots, and humbles those who refuse to be humbled. But it doesn't have to reach that point. You can train your mind to rise without being blinded by the view. You can lead without losing sight of the ground. That is what separates the truly powerful from the merely popular. It's not about being admired, it's about being real. You have the chance to build something far greater than influence. Like, you can build awareness. You can become the kind of leader who doesn't just rise, but stay sharp, grounded, and untouchable by delusion. The kind who sees clearly even when others are too afraid to speak. The kind who earns power not through image, but through depth. And that kind of power never fades. Power by its very nature attracts obedience not because it earns respect, but because it demands submission. People don't just listen to power, they conform to it, not out of belief, but out of fear. And that fear becomes the invisible engine behind the delusion of every leader who stops questioning their own authority. The moment people stop telling you the truth is the moment you stop seeing the truth, and it happens quietly. Without warning. What begins as leadership becomes a stage. Every interaction becomes a performance. Every compliment, every nod, every smile is rehearsed. Not for your benefit, but for their survival. They don't want to displease you, so they feed your illusion. And your mind, without knowing it, starts craving that illusion more than reality. This is how power corrupts from within. Not through evil intentions, but through emotional addiction. You become addicted to agreement, addicted to praise, addicted to being right, and like all addictions, it dulls your senses. It kills your ability to think critically, to feel deeply, to hear what others are afraid to say. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to issue threats. Just your presence becomes enough to silence truth. People laugh at your jokes even when they're not funny. They agree with your ideas even when they make no sense. Not because you've inspired loyalty, but because you've created fear, and fear always breeds silence. Silence becomes the mirror you look into, but it reflects nothing real. If you want to build power that lasts, you must reject this illusion completely. You must create a space where truth isn't punished, where questions aren't threats, where disagreement is not rebellion, but a gift. Because the moment people start telling you only what you want to hear, you are no longer leading. You are being led by fear, by ego, by the false image others create to protect themselves from your reaction, and that image becomes your cage. You start making decisions based not on strategy, but on what maintains the applause. You begin to serve the performance instead of the purpose, and that is the beginning of your downfall. Real leadership requires brutal honesty, not just from others, but from yourself. It requires the courage to ask, what am I not seeing? Who around me is afraid to speak? What truths am I resisting? The most dangerous enemy is not the one outside you. It's the lie you believe about yourself, especially the one that says, I already know enough. That voice is the beginning of blindness, the seed of collapse. To rise in truth, you must welcome discomfort. You must honor the voices that challenge you, because those voices are not threats to your power. They are the foundation of it. Protecting your ego will make you feel powerful, but protecting the truth will make you unbreakable, and only one of those will stand when everything else falls away. Choose wisely. The higher you rise, the more isolated you become. Not physically, but psychologically. People stop seeing you as a human being and start seeing you as a role, a title, a figure to impress or fear. And slowly, without ever asking for it, you become untouchable. Not in strength, but in solitude. No one speaks to you directly. No one disagrees without hesitation. You become surrounded by politeness, surface-level conversations, empty affirmations. And beneath that false harmony lies a silent danger. The slow death of self-awareness. When isolation sets in, arrogance follows. Not because you're evil or malicious, but because the absence of resistance makes every thought feel like truth. You begin to assume that silence means approval, that your instincts are flawless, that your vision needs no correction. But what you don't realize is that the silence is not agreement, it's self-protection. People aren't validating your ideas because they believe in you. They're doing it to survive you. And you, unknowingly, become a prisoner of your own presence. Every compliment feels sincere, every smile looks real. But none of it is truth. It's theater, and you're at the center of a performance no one dares to stop. This illusion becomes your reality. You stop questioning your perspective. You stop listening with curiosity. You stop evolving. And instead of leading with strength, you start ruling with assumption. The mind becomes rigid, the heart grows cold, and the soul slowly disconnects from the world it was meant to serve. Real wisdom demands contrast. It grows through tension, through challenge, through the courage to be wrong. But isolation removes all of that. It replaces growth with comfort. And comfort is the slow death of greatness. If you truly want to rise, you must do something most people never have the strength to do. You must invite resistance. You must create spaces where truth can exist even when it hurts. You must choose connection over control. Not weakness, not softness, but real connection. The kind built on truth, not flattery. The kind that makes you sharper, not just safer. The kind that exposes your blind spots before they become disasters. Power is not about having the loudest voice in the room. It's about having the clearest mind in the storm. And clarity cannot exist in isolation. Your greatness will never be defined by how many people agree with you. It will be defined by how many people trust you enough to be honest with you. By how deeply you're willing to be challenged, by how fiercely you protect truth, not just your image. The world is full of leaders who fell, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they surrounded themselves with silence. You must not be one of them. Rise not by silencing others, but by amplifying reality. Stay grounded, not by being right, but by staying real. Because when isolation knocks, arrogance answers. And once arrogance takes the throne, the fall is no longer a matter of if, but when. Obedience for admiration, applause for success. And in doing so, they create cultures that reward compliance over courage. Environments where saying the right thing matters more than doing the right thing. And under that pressure, people stop thinking critically. They stop innovating. They stop caring. Because what's the point of effort when outcomes are dictated by ego? This is the death spiral of false power. The more diluted the leader becomes, the more disconnected their decisions. The more disconnected their decisions, the more destruction they cause. But because no one will tell them, they think it's progress, they think it's working, they think they're winning, until everything breaks at once. Not because of external failure, but because of internal erosion. They were never fighting the outside world. They were fighting themselves and losing. But there is another path. One few choose, but all can walk. The path of conscious leadership. The path where power is not a throne to sit on, but a weight to carry with discipline. Where every decision is filtered through truth, not ego. Where disagreement is not punished, but welcomed. Where policies reflect wisdom, not insecurity. And where those at the top remember they are not gods, they are guardians of something bigger than themselves. If you ever find yourself leading, whether it's a team, a company, a cause, or even your own life, remember this: every action you take builds a system around you. A system that either feeds your growth or traps your delusion. If you build a system that only reflects your desires, you will lose yourself in the mirror. But if you build one that reflects truth, you will rise beyond the illusions that have destroyed so many before you. Your future isn't shaped by your intentions. It's shaped by your clarity, your structure. Your ability to see reality when it's inconvenient. Lead with truth, not comfort. Lead with courage, not pride. Because when power meets clarity, it becomes something unshakable. But when it meets delusion, collapse is only a matter of time. Choose the path that endures. Choose the mind that sees. Rot does not begin on the surface. It begins within, quietly and visibly, while everything still looks strong from the outside. The most dangerous collapse is not the one people can see. It's the one that happens in silence, while everyone is still clapping. Power does not vanish in one moment of failure. It decays over time through the slow erosion of truth, the abandonment of self-awareness, and the elevation of ego above principle. The leader still gives speeches, the team still obeys, the structure still stands. But beneath it all, something vital is dying: reality. The most tragic part is that the collapse is preventable, but those who are caught in it never see it coming, because they are too intoxicated by their image to notice their substance disappearing. They believe the applause is proof of greatness, when in truth it's often just fear disguised as loyalty. They assume silence means agreement, when in fact it means exhaustion. People are no longer following because they believe, they're following because they're afraid. And when fear becomes the foundation, everything built on top of it becomes fragile. Leadership infected by delusion creates followers trained not to think, but to comply. And the cost of this isn't just inefficiency, it's complete psychological decay. The culture turns hollow, creativity withers. Accountability dies. No one dares to speak truth because truth sounds like betrayal in a system built on illusion, and so lies become the norm. Fake progress replaces real results. People learn to survive instead of thrive. And slowly, everything that once had life becomes mechanical, drained of meaning, drained of vision, drained of soul. That is the hidden cost of self-deception. Not just the fall of the leader, but the disintegration of everyone they touch. Influence can either elevate or infect. It can spark transformation or spread corruption. And if a leader loses the ability to see clearly, the damage is never limited to them. It radiates outward. Systems fall, morale breaks, values disappear, and all of it began the moment truth was silenced. But here's what you must remember. Every great collapse begins with a small lie. A lie the leader tells themselves to feel in control. A lie they protect because admitting it would mean facing their weakness. That one lie grows. It multiplies. It shapes choices. It rewrites values. Until the person no longer recognizes who they've become. That is the real tragedy, not just failure, but the slow loss of self. A person once driven by vision, now ruled by fear. A voice once filled with purpose, now echoing empty words. You must never let it happen to you. You must guard your mind against the subtle lies. You must protect your clarity like your life depends on it, because it does. The invisible collapse always begins in the mind, but so does the resistance to it. If you build your foundation on truth, on discipline, on ruthless self-awareness, you will not fall like the rest. You will endure. Because only those who refuse to lie to themselves are truly unshakable. You are not immune to the illusion. No one is. The moment you believe you're above it, you're already inside it. It doesn't matter how disciplined, intelligent, or self-aware you think you are, delusion creeps in through the cracks of success. It feeds on pride. It hides behind your achievements. It speaks in your voice and convinces you that you've earned the right to stop questioning yourself. But the truth is, the higher you go, the more brutal your self-honesty must become. Because the invisible collapse that destroys others will find you too unless you choose a different path, one built not on image, but on inner mastery. Real power is not in domination. It's in the ability to remain clear when the world starts echoing your name. It's in choosing reflection over reaction, stillness over performance, truth over comfort. The person who leads without losing themselves is not lucky. They are relentless. They've trained their mind to resist the praise, to question their thoughts, to welcome correction. They've broken the addiction to approval, and because of that, they stand while others fall. They grow while others shrink. They last while others vanish. If you want to become that kind of leader, it starts now. Not when you're promoted, not when you're followed, not when you're followed, not when you're admired. It starts the moment you decide that truth matters more than validation, that growth matters more than recognition, that your mind must be sharper than your title. It starts with the daily decision to confront